Today, a shooting in Portland. Black Lives Matter declares its open season on white people, and Joe Biden finally condemns the violence. Is it too little, too late? We've got a lot coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by Stu Burgier, host of Stu Does America, right here on BlazeTV.
Yes, thank you very much.
I felt like that was a professional intro, right?
Really good. That was really good. You should
Stu Burgier.
Yeah, like you said it with emphasis, like you actually cared. I know you don't, but I appreciate you taking it.
That's the acting part of this job. So thanks for noticing. Also joined by BlazeTV contributor Eric July, who I actually do. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Definitely seemed more sincere with Eric.
All right. In case you guys have not noticed, there's a lot that's happened over the weekend. You know, you have some of these weekends where you can tune out and not spend 24 hours getting caught up. And this was not one of those weekends. You had to stay constantly tuned into what was going on with the news because it was all so awful. And it really was. We've got footage from Portland where there was I guess it was a Trump caravan that came into the city. A lot of police supporters, Trump supporters going in to show their support for President Trump. Of course, they clashed with the activists, the rioters, Antifa. And there ended up being a shooting in Portland, which resulted in a death. Now, it's amazing to me that we keep getting this video footage of all of these incidents just right on camera. All of these incidents of people getting shot, we end up seeing firsthand practically. But here is the shooting. It's kind of graphic at the end, so if you have young children, you may want to keep them in the other room for this one. But around midnight, gunfire rang out in the downtown area, and here is a little bit of what happened. Watch. So there sounds like there are people saying, "We've got a couple over here." You, of course, hear the gunshots. And the victim. Now, the victim was a Trump supporter. He was there. He was known also as a Blue Lives Matter supporter. And the suspect is being investigated by police. He describes himself as 100% Antifa and, quote, willing to fight in the war. He was also reportedly cited for carrying a loaded gun downtown and interfering with police in July, but was never prosecuted. So this whole defund the police, let's not penalize criminals, going really, really well in Portland, apparently, Stu.
Yeah, it's a good system for your mayor to basically ignore violence over multiple months. It works out really well. Look, it's hard to believe this. I mean, we've been sitting here and we getting to this point now where we're watching murders on a daily basis, and we come in and we just have to talk about these murders caught on camera. This is it's hard to believe this is happening in the United States of America. This feels like it's
2020.
In 2020. It seems like it's this Syrian civil war. You'd see footage like this, and it's Portland every single night for months. How anyone could be thinking about opening a business in Portland right now, or moving their kids there so they can go into the schools in Portland. I can't even imagine it. I mean, this is a city crumbling in front of our eyes. And, they're going to try now to do this bit of mental gymnastics where they say, well, it's the guy who lives on the other coast who's on TV all the time, and it's his fault. Because, what can we do? We're only the mayor with the control of the police force. They're going to attempt this. Biden is going to attempt it. He tried to attempt it today. I just don't see how anyone can fall for it. I mean, they've gone a long time here by not calling out this violence, by not, by name criticizing Antifa and parts of Black Lives Matter, too. I mean, it's not just Antifa. But they have not done that. unlike the right, when there's a violent incident, they are forced to answer for every element of society that is related to anyone who wants lower taxes, gets blamed for it. These politicians don't have to come out and answer for this specifically. They don't have to call it parts of Black Lives Matter. None of it. It's embarrassing, and it is so much worse in a place like Portland because the mayor is so terrible.
Yeah,
so terrible. But I feel bad for these officers who really could do something about this and are forced to basically stand down and let all this happen.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, look. I don't know why people have been so hell-bent, and it's not just on the left side of the political spectrum, it's on different sides. But people pretend like this isn't a thing. They like to think that it doesn't exist, or what they try to do is level it out and say, well, look at this is whataboutism. Yeah. Look at what the other side is doing. And I don't think anybody can look at the landscape right now and say that the sides in terms of what's going on are equal in this regards. We know that it's not generally the quote unquote right that have been protesting for 80 days at a time. It's not what's happening. And we've seen these instances of violence. Like that was pretty straightforward when you got a guy saying we got one right here, and then it doesn't get an execution. Yeah, it doesn't get any more blatant than that. And again, if you could imagine if it was on the other side, how they would be condemning Trump, his supporters, and everybody saying that they have to answer for that.
Well, hold on, because there was a 17-year-old who...
Oh, it just happened. That's true.
Right, who came over to defend private businesses,
that's very true.
Who was getting things thrown at him, and a skateboard, he was being assaulted. He defended himself, and they're still saying he murdered the people.
It's wow. I mean, that's another thing. It was funny. We don't have to go back, I guess, that far to see how...
I'm old enough.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember 3 days ago when this happened. And it's crazy how they're kind of like you watch them, and it's like they saw something completely different. Like this, like, oh well, this peaceful guy was just trying to take down this mass shooter with his skateboard. And I'm like, how can we not look at the media? How can we not look at them as if they are like the enemies of just individuals? You know what I mean? Because this is insane. But it's blatant, and I wish people on any side of the political spectrum would stop pretending like that isn't the case. Even libertarians, I have to be like, stop. We don't have to do that. I know we get so caught up in this. Well, they're on the same, both different sides of the wings on the same bird or what have you, because that's politically expedient. That's convenient for us to do that. But I'm not of the opinion that I have to sit up here and pretend like that isn't existing. We've talked about this throughout the course of as all of this really post George Floyd, and how all of this has escalated, and we need to stop pretending like it isn't just that. These guys have been incentivized to act like this. They've been protected by way of their leaders or what have you, their politicians, pretending that it doesn't exist. And again, what frustrates me the most, it's not about the police for me. It's like we end up with instances like Kyle, so where people actually defend themselves, and they're the ones that are criminalized for it. That to me is more damning than anything else. I'm less about the police going to, all right, you said that, or whether it comes from the mayor, whether it comes from the governor, whoever, you not helping. Okay, fine. People put that in their hands. Why are we prosecuting people for defending themselves, their businesses, their friends' businesses, families' businesses, or what have you? That's the biggest issue. And we saw that immediately after the whole George Floyd thing with the guy in the pawn shop who defended his pawn shop from a would-be, a looter. Yeah. Call him what it is. And he shot him, and they charged him for murder. Mm-hmm. It's like, what in the world is going on? And I have a problem with that. So obviously they're tying the hands behind the backs of the people that are in these areas, and unfortunately they are afraid to defend themselves because they have essentially made it illegal for them to do so. Yeah,
Eric does make a great point, because it's not just the two people that you mentioned, Kyle Rittenhouse and the
pawn shop owner.
Yeah, the pawn shop owner, but then the McCloskeys too in St. Louis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like
anyone who defends themselves becomes
So you have to now live in America where you can't trust the police to come and maintain order, and you also can't trust that you are going to be allowed to defend yourself because you're going to get, all of these bogus charges put on you.
Right. I mean, they're going to defund the police, so they definitely won't be there to help, right?
Right.
I mean, it's a fascinating thing to watch. I mean, I think that you can make a slight distinction maybe from the McCloskeys and the pawn shop owner to maybe, a Patriot Prayer coming in or a Rittenhouse coming into from an outside area. And a lot of the guys who've done that, I think, have been really heroic, honestly. Like, they've defended people's lives and property in a heroic way. I definitely would not want my 17-year-old going out in the middle of one of those situations because I would fear for his life.
I agree.
Though, morally, it's completely fine to go out and try to protect people's property. But what I find is really fascinating here is, like, this guy from Patriot Prayer, he was there. And look, would I recommend to you tonight to go with your Trump signs into the middle of an Antifa rally and see what happens? I would not. Would I participate in it? I would not, because I would not want to deal with that. But I'm also a complete wuss, and that's one of the reasons why I don't do anything brave. But these guys go in there, and you think about the particular guy from Patriot Prayer.
Yeah.
He's there, and people are saying, "Well, what are you doing? Like, what are you going in the middle of that for? You're looking for a fight. You're trying to stir it up." And he winds up getting shot in the middle of this. This is a mirror image of Charlottesville. In Charlottesville, remember, the woman who's run over there was counter-protester. She only showed up because she wanted to take a stand and say, absolutely not, these white supremacists are not going to take over my town. She was there to do that, and one of the people from the white supremacist group murdered her for it. This is the exact same story. This guy, I don't know who he was. I don't know if he was a good guy or a bad guy. I don't know anything about him in particular. But he was there to be a counter-protester, essentially, to Antifa, to take the other side of that Antifa/BLM. And this guy was Antifa. To take the other side of that. Was there ever a moment that people said, you know what, she just shouldn't have been down there counter-protesting? That's the problem. No one said that. Of course no one said it, because it would be insane, just as it's insane here. This guy paid with his life for trying to express a political First Amendment opinion. We have no evidence that he was doing anything that he should not have been doing. We may come out with that evidence, but the bottom line is it's a mirror image of that story as it speaks right now. And people are putting the blame on him. As if he got himself murdered somehow.
Right.
This was not suicide. This was someone who was down there to try to express a First Amendment constitutionally allowed opinion. And the media just doesn't care. They don't care because they know no one's going to call them on it. They don't have to go to every Democratic politician and have them answer for every Antifa member. They never have to do it. They could just say it's a scam and it doesn't exist. Like Antifa is a much smaller group than white supremacists. Like, how many people have we seen marching around with tiki torches saying Jews will not replace us? I can know of the one time.
It's like 12 of them.
It's like 12 of them. Yeah. The next year they came back and it was like legitimately 12.
Yeah.
It's pathetic, but the media doesn't care because they control this and they're able to get away with it, with the exception of social media and places like the Blaze and others that are at least exposing it.
Yeah. When we come back, Stu mentions that the media doesn't care. There are also some other people on the ground who didn't really care about lives being lost, and that is I'm sorry, I almost said protesters. The rioters, that's who. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Home Title Lock. So if you have your home, you have all these nice things in your home and you want to protect it, so you probably get some security system and you set it. Whenever you leave, you're like, beep, 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 and you leave and you think that your home is secure. But guess what? It's actually not. It's really not, because someone can actually go online and not just steal your stuff, but steal your entire home, your entire home's title. And then you're just SOL with all of the retirement nest egg that you have put in your home with all of your equity. It's all gone because the cyber thief has gone online and forged a signature on a quitclaim deed and refiled as the new owner of your home. And if you don't think that that's scary enough, there's nothing that you can do about it except have Home Title Lock's protection. So you may think, oh, well, it's fine because I'm protected by my bank or I'm protected by an identity theft program. No, you're actually not. When I said you're SOL if this happens to you without Home Title Lock, I really mean you're SOL if this happens to you without Home Title Lock. Lock. Home Title Lock will put a virtual barrier around your home's title, and they will shut it down the instant that they detect any tampering, anything fishy going on with your home's title. Now, you have to go to HometitleLock.com, register your address to see if you're already a victim. So, because like I said, you're not going to know it until something really, really bad happens that you cannot undo. Do not wait for that to happen. Go to HometitleLock.com, use promo code Y. You will get 30 free days of protection to help you manage. That is promo code Y, WHY, at HometitleLock.com. Back in a minute. We showed the tensions flaring in Portland when one counter-protester with, Patriot Prayer was shot and killed in what appeared to be cold blood, just executed for just being there, just for the sake of that he supported President Trump. I want to show you just a little bit of who we're dealing with on the other side. This is a group of the rioters, and the one on the megaphone actually addresses the entire group and tells them what happened, that a member of Patriot Prayer was killed, and here is how they react. Watch.
And tonight, I just got word. The person who died was a Patriot Prayer person. Yeah. He was a Nazi. Our community held its own and took out the trash. I am not going to shed any tears over a Nazi. Everybody needs to realize what's going on in these. Our community can hold its own without the police. We can take out the trash on our own. I am not sad that a fascist died tonight.
They use that term so loosely, man.
And that's the thing that sticks out to me that is just so frustrating and fascinating at the same time, is that they have been able to just completely take over words.
Yeah.
Words don't mean anything anymore. He was a fascist. He was a Nazi. And you hear that all the time on social media, too, right? President Trump is a fascist. President Trump is a Nazi. Therefore, we are allowed to do all these.
That's how they justify their actions, is because they get to try to, I guess they moralize with the situation and saying, well, these people are very bad people. I mean, what worse can you be than a Nazi, right? So they look at it as, well, we are taking, like you said, taking out the trash. So they can punch you, they could commit acts of violence, they can kill you, and it's just, well, it was that you were a fascist, you were a Nazi, and that's how they try to rationalize with what it is that they're doing. These people are, look, they're dangerous people, and I'm tired of pretending like it's anything else. You know, these guys, that's why those terms are used so loosely. And unfortunately, people don't see that. They think it's just harmless that someone just calls you these derogatory names, but not just derogatory names, like worse than the worst names. Like, to call someone a Nazi, like, do you know what that is, right? Like,
no, they don't.
Clearly,
is the answer.
Clearly, they don't know what that is, but that's what it's about. It's about painting you in the most negative light as they possibly can, so they can rationalize with whatever bad behavior that they have. If they want to commit acts of violence, they want to dox you, they want to harass you, they get to say, well, this person was a fascist and they're not, or a Nazi, and they're some like freedom fighter or something of that nature. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people are getting caught in the crossfire, they're getting hurt, they're getting harassed because of this, man. Like I say all the time, politics just brings out the absolute worst in people.
Yeah, still.
Today's been a depressing day. I don't know if you listened to the radio show today. Glenn was in super mega apocalyptic mode to start the day.
Which is only a little bit different than his normal apocalyptic mode.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's been a bit of a downer. So I was thinking about this, and I come back to this point often as the only way I can actually stay sane in today's society, which is that you can always tell that things are getting better when you realize the things that people are claiming and fighting for get dumber and dumber. Mm. Like, at one point, there were actual Confederates who were actually enslaving people and actually killing people all over the place. Now we're protesting their statues, right? Like, so the statue's not doing anything. It's just a statue. And like, that might be right to take them down, but it's a statue. Right. Nazis killed 6 million Jews, many millions of others, right? And we could sit here and think that was the actual Nazi. Now, a guy who votes for someone who wants a border wall is a Nazi? So in a way, this is an improvement. It doesn't feel like an improvement, right? But at least these things aren't actually here right now. But people are actually dying in some of these incidents when we're talking about Antifa. And, those are real human lives that are disregarded. I mean, this is a somewhat shallow way of describing the situation, but I'll do it anyway. George Floyd was one person. We now have 36 people dead in these riots. 36. I absolutely mourn the loss of George Floyd and anyone who is taken out in a way that they should not be. We can talk about all the details of all of these incidents and many other people who have died needlessly, but there is no reason to have 36 times the amount of people that died in the George Floyd incident to die in riots about the George Floyd incident. Remember, we've talked about this before when it goes to unarmed black men being killed by police, and it's been 9 or 11, depending on what number you look at. But this is now multiple years worth of this thing, right? Has now been lost in these riots, not to mention the property damage, not to mention the people who have been injured, not to mention the people walking down the street and getting hit in the back of the head with a brick for no reason, or an officer trying to get to his car and getting hit with a flying metal disc like Captain America or whatever that clip was. This doesn't make any sense. It's not making the country better, and it is whether you think, no matter what you think about police and the way they handle themselves, they're sometimes good, sometimes bad. This is a terrible way to react to it, and it's not the way a civilization reacts to it. A civilization has rules and processes for a reason. We may very well think that a statue should come down. Well, if that happens, then we vote on it.
Let's all vote on it.
The government takes it down and we put it in a museum and we can all say how horrible it was later on. We don't go and tear it down like we just, conquered Iraq. That's not the way this is supposed to happen in a functioning society. And more and more, it seems like we're not a functioning society.
Well, we saw last week that the mainstream media has apparently gotten a hold of the polling numbers, which don't look so great because of all of the riots. Turns out the average American does not condone violence and burning down your own cities and killing people over all of these ridiculous things. So Joe Biden, I guess, got wind of it. And, I think we referenced this earlier in the show, Joe Biden and Kamala, both finally, 100 days since all of these riots began, Joe Biden and Kamala finally came out and condemned the rioting, the violence, all of that. But I guess my question to you guys is, there's so much out there of them, offering tweeting out links to contribute to their, the bail funds for all of these people who have been arrested for all of the violence. Kamala just went on Stephen Colbert and told everyone right there, she said, if you think this is going to stop, this is not going to stop, and it shouldn't stop. I mean, she's saying that about these people who are going on to commit all of these crimes. Can you walk back from that? Because I look at that and I'm like, there's absolutely no way the average American is going to buy their crap at this point.
Yeah, no, and that's obviously what some of these numbers are saying. Look, they painted themselves in a corner.
Yeah.
They really committed to that demographic of people. They thought they could use them as their useful idiots. And to be fair, that's what happened. But what they didn't account for is the fact that there are people that are looking at that would generally support you, that would generally support your cause. Right. But they look at that and they see that it's not a one-off, right? It's not even a two-off. We're talking multiple days, multiple cities, and it's getting closer and closer to home with some of these people. So they look at that and they view that as, well, wait a minute. Why would I want to support the people who are either not doing nothing about it? Because to be fair, a lot of this happens in the cities that people with D's next to their name, they control, yes. Right? So they see that and they're like, this isn't really what I wanted. I thought that this was just going to be some equality or something that was what we were supposedly fighting for. But we're talking about people getting hurt and all of this. And this is not anything that they want to be associated with. People see that, especially people that are more closer to the center. Mm-hmm. They view that. But they painted themselves in a corner by trying to use those useful idiots for their causes and hoping to get their support. And oftentimes it hasn't even worked. You've seen like some of these mayors, they've been going to their houses and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff hasn't even worked. So they painted themselves in a corner and they're going to get exactly what they deserve. Believe it or not, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff's not real life, man. And you can have all these retweets and likes and stuff, people supporting all of that stuff. There's folks, regular Joe Blows at home that are seeing this stuff unfolding like, they're like, I don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah, Stu, is it too little too late from the Democrats?
I think so. I think sometimes you get, when things happen and you get emotional, you sometimes make poor decisions. We mentioned this off the air, that Drew Brees is in practice with a piece of masking tape and the name Jacob Blake written on his helmet. And I don't know, right after he does this, the report comes out that he, is essentially a rapist.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, he's been.
Call it what it is.
Yeah,
a
it's what
horrible
it is.
sexual assaulter.
It's a horrible sexual assault.
Yes.
And I would be completely comfortable calling him a rapist.
Yes.
Alleged rapist. Now, Drew Brees would not normally put a rapist name on his helmet, I don't think. But because this is like, now we're all trying to get in front of this. The Democratic Party fell into this. Before the George Floyd incident, Black Lives Matter as a name had about a +10 favorability. Right after that, they shot up to +25.
Wow.
+25 is one of the more popular movements in America, right? Like, so you can see the Democrats' mind going crazy. Like, these are people who are generally on our side of the argument. Yeah. We can come out, we could take a +25 issue and own it. So they owned it, and they owned it, and they beat it into the ground, and they said how wonderful it was. They pushed through the fiery, peaceful protests. They pushed through all of this stuff going on, and right now, this polls show it at 0. It went from +25 to flat in 2 months, and it's now basically abortion. It's the typical partisan issue that they have now taken complete ownership over and justified all sorts of horrible activities along with it. This is a mistake, and they are seeing that thing, that +25 to 0, is a massive move in the polls for a very short period of time. And if they are the group associated with the people going and burning down cities, they realize there's going to have electoral consequences. They do see themselves as in the lead, so they don't feel. They felt they've been able to kind of cruise. And I think this is the first time they're getting a little bit of like, oh my gosh, is this going to happen to us again? Is 2016 going to happen to us again? This is the first time I think they've really felt this so far. And you can see the panic. I mean, I don't know how much you saw of this Biden speech. And at one point he's like, do I look like a socialist who favors rioters? Come on. Like, he's like terrified. He's this dream of his for 30 plus years is going down the tubes if they don't get this under control. So they are legitimately panicked about this. They see this advantage they've had with suburban moms going up in flames, in this case, literally, because, they might not like Donald. I mean, a lot of suburban moms are like, I don't want to, this guy's his foul mouth, and he's always running his mouth, and I'm sick of the chaos. Well, the other side is embracing people burning down your cities. That Target you're going to get diapers at, it doesn't stand anymore. It's now rubble. That is not how you win over suburban mom voters. And they're feeling that pressure, and they're going to try to reverse it. In normal circumstances, I would say there's no way they could do it. The media will be so complicit with this reversal that they may be able to pull it off. It's certainly possible. But this is legitimate for them. They are starting to freak out.
Yeah. All right. We've got more to come. Back in a minute. I feel like the people who signed on to the Black Lives Matter. All right, speaking of Joe Biden's speech today. So I think, we're talking about whether or not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris coming out condemning the violence can be enough to win back some of the support that they had. I also think it's what is going to factor in is the fact that Joe Biden has no idea what's going on, ever, really, it seems like. I believe he probably had a prompter for the speech. I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what he's trying to say. I'm hoping you guys can help me piece this one together. Joe Biden coming out and talking about coronavirus. I guess, I don't know, watch.
COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, has taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives, when you think about it, more lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years.
Okay.
I think you try to get that thing on the rails at the end.
Yep. COVID has taken more than 100 years.
Oh, yeah. Terrible tragedy.
And then there's something about it's taken more than any other year, which would be the case when you have a novel coronavirus come out that no one has ever heard of before. This would be
that's what it happens.
More than any other year, right? I'm not. What?
I think what he was trying to say is more Americans have died this year than any other year for 100 years. He just butchered it, right? And it's like, I will say this is something that Trump does too.
Yeah.
When he screws up the beginning, instead of just admitting that he screwed up the beginning of the sentence and starting over, a lot of politicians do this, but Biden's really bad at it. He just tries to work it in as if that's what he meant. Look, I mean the lives. Like he is. It was really funny. He's down the road. He just really butchered the beginning of that and could not find his way back around to make any sense out of the point. But I mean, the speech, he is now, there's this thing where you have, when you try to, people always say, like, you have to define your opponent, right? And so that is something you have to do. But it's not just defining your opponent. That doesn't work in a campaign. Because you could just say, if I just say over and over again, this person does X, Y, and Z, it's not going to work. They have to have that confirming event. It was with Hillary Clinton, like where they would say corruption. She was corrupt. We all knew she was corrupt. But when there was that FBI investigation 10 days before an election, right, it's that confirming event. Everyone's like, oh my God, they've been saying this the whole time, and here it is. This happens with Biden all the time. Yeah. We keep saying, like, the guy can't get through a sentence without screwing them up. And then every time he does a speech, there's something like this. This is like Al Sharpton level idiocy. He's not even close to the language. No. In that 25 seconds. They're just a bunch of, they're English words, but they're just like he threw them all out there and they landed in the wrong order.
Eric.
Yeah, I mean, that clearly, well, I don't want to say clearly because it wasn't that clear. But,
nothing about Joe Biden you can say clearly.
Right. I guess, like he said, he's trying to say, I'm assuming, and I don't know if it's true or not, I don't know, but he was trying to say that more people had died this year than any, I guess, her last 100 years.
Yeah,
in
right.
America.
Which I don't
know if that's true. Doesn't sound like it is, but I'm guessing that was what he was trying to say. So yes, it may very well, even if he was trying to say it, it may very well be wrong. But that seems to be what he was saying. This guy's nutty, man. This guy's nuttier than a fruitcake. And every time, he does get out there and speaks to people, he does have some sort of gaffe. And I do think it is hilarious how he does try to get it back on the rails by doing the whole, come on, man. Like, like that.
He acts as if he's exasperated by what he just said. That's like his way out. It's like, I mean, that sentence is so shocking. That's why I said it. It's like, come on. All right, now let me start over. It's a great little tick he has. And he does it all the time. And they try to make it his name like, well, he's got a stutter. It's like, he just butchered that. All right. Like, that's
not a stutter.
Ain't no stutter.
No, that's not a stutter. That's just him screwing up. Al Sharpton did this on prompter all the time, which is why I bring him up. We used to love watching his clips because he'd just be like, they'd be out of order, all the words. Like, what are you even trying to say? And he would not admit, like, I'm obviously reading a prompter. I screwed it up. Let me start over.
Right.
Because I want you to really understand this point. Instead, it's like he tries to act as if it's normal. And he definitely was on prompter. I watched the whole speech. Yeah. 100% on prompter. Okay. There's no question. It was not, it was very, very much controlled. And like, it's, and the funny thing with him now, he's at that point where that was it was about a 15-minute speech. And that was by far the worst moment in it, right? He had a couple of other, I think he called Mike Pence at one point.
Mike Pence.
Pence or Prince, one of the two. I can't remember. He screwed up the name. There's a couple of screw-ups, but he's now at the point where it's so much everyone's expecting. I was just sitting there on the edge of my seat, like waiting for one of those moments to happen, and they happen every single time.
Yeah. Well, because, you have to imagine, like, when does he gain that momentum back? Because now we're going into the debates, I guess, if they have them. Because Nancy Pelosi, they've been planting the seed for over a month now, that we shouldn't have debates because that would just be, like you don't want to legitimize a liar like President Trump. So who knows if they even have those debates? But then it's like, okay, well, then you have the debates. What, does he win people back over in the debate?
Yeah, no, to be honest, that would have to, at this point, considering all that's surrounding not just the world, but him, as far as that actually may be his only way out right now, is that he does go into the debate and has a strong performance. Yeah, that's a long shot. That's a Hail Mary. I understand that. But that may actually be his only way. It more so what I guess I'm trying to say is that Trump has to screw up for him to get that momentum back. It can't be anything that he does. More so, it's more so what the other guy, which very well could happen, what the other guy does. So he's in trouble, and I think he knows he's in trouble. The campaign knows they're in trouble, but it may just be too little too late. And the debates, like I said, that may be what helps him, but I don't think he has it all upstairs enough for it to help him. So he may just be damned.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see. Coming up next, we are joined by Peter Schweizer, author of Profiles in Corruption, to talk about an awesome new documentary about Joe Biden and all of his corruption. Back in a minute.
He won't even talk about the most years that have died this year. He doesn't even cover that in the documentary.
Really? Joining us now is Peter Schweizer. He is the author of Profiles in Corruption and also the president of the Government Accountability Institute. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
And let me tell you, I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you.
Mostly because you've made it your life's work to show just how corrupt Joe Biden is, which I completely respect, because for some reason it has gone so under the radar in politics, even though he's been around for forever. No one realizes it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've been doing investigating corruption and cronyism in Washington, D.C. for a long time, looked at Republicans and Democrats. Biden's interesting because a lot of times they're the sort of usual suspects. You can kind of see the way they operate and the manner in which they operate. Biden hasn't seemed to fit that definition, but when we started to look at the commercial ties, we found that the Bidens are broader than anyone else because there's 5 family members involved. I've never seen that many. We had a Republican senator from Missouri, had 3, but never had 5. But also with the Bidens, what you have is, I think, the seriousness of the corruption. It's not just, some kid gets a paving contract.
Right.
We're talking about deals with foreign governments. So that's what I think makes the Biden corruption so troubling.
So word on the street is that you guys have some documents that have just been released this morning. What can you tell us about them? Yeah,
these are the documents related to the China deal. We've talked about them. We've shown them on screen, but we're actually releasing the documents. You can get them at the Government Accountability Institute website, which is cronyism.com. And it just basically, confirms what we're saying is actually written down in paper. And that's everything that we do. We don't use anonymous sources. We don't speculate. We say if Hunter Biden signed this deal with the Chinese, we actually show you the document to show you when it was signed, who it was with, and what the terms were.
What goes through your mind when you hear, because I know there's a lot of people, I know Glenn has done a chalkboard or multiple chalkboards on Joe Biden's corruption. There's a lot of people who throw out the term conspiracy theory and conspiracy when it comes to Joe Biden's dealings with China and with Ukraine. What goes through your mind when you hear people just pass that off as a conspiracy?
Well, to me, that's really shows the weakness of their position, because there's no conspiracy and there's no theory.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is the oldest game in politics, which is follow the money. And I think, the same reporters who look at, Wall Street held this fundraiser for this political candidate, Big Oil held a fundraiser for this candidate, and then says, here's the legislation that followed, which I've worked on those stories at CNN before. Those stories should be pursued and followed. This story is exactly the same. This is who's putting money in the Biden's pocket. Shouldn't we look and see if there's an implication or an effect on policy? And I think there very clearly is. In this case, though, we're not talking about some domestic company. We're talking about a foreign government who happens to be our chief rival on the global stage, which is China.
Yeah. So there is a new documentary out. You can find it on BlazeTV. It is based off of all of Peter's work that he has done uncovering all of this corruption. It's called Riding the Dragon, the Biden's Chinese Secrets. If we could, let's go ahead and let's watch a clip from Riding the Dragon. Now, this is about Hunter Biden's involvement with Biden's 2013 trip over to China. Watch.
A 2013 trip to China getting new attention this morning, not for what Joe Biden did, but for who he brought with him.
And what was Hunter Biden doing? We're not sure. He doesn't appear in many pictures of the official festivities. But what we do know is this. 10 days after father and son returned to the United States, Hunter Biden's small investment firm announced a $1 billion private equity deal with the Chinese government. And where did the capital come from for this deal? From the Chinese government itself.
That is fortunate.
It is, right?
What a great coincidence. It's good things worked out for them.
Doesn't it make you? It really does.
Obvious. It's frustrating. I mean, watching the documentary, it's great, by the way. You should watch it on BlazeTV or on YouTube this week. You see, though, it's not just the run-of-the-mill corruption. You made this point, Peter, and it's an important one to highlight. Like, these are not only just deals with foreign governments, they're deals with foreign governments working against American interests. Mm-hmm. Like, this is actually what our official government position is. We're working against that. And at the same time, Hunter Biden is profiting on the other side of that deal. That's what makes it so much worse than, I think, even the Ukraine stuff, which is still really significant. It takes you down a road of fighting against America in a way. They're stealing nuclear secrets we're talking about. This is not little tiny games. And, Peter goes through a lot of that in the documentary, and it needs to get out there, because I was surprised, and I have Peter on my show, Stu Does America, later on tonight. One of the things I asked him was, did you think there was enough attention to this at the RNC? I mean, really, there was a couple of people who mentioned it, but I don't know that Trump mentioned it at all in his speech. It seems like for some reason they're a little scared to bring it up. Maybe they think it's too complicated. That's where this film really does great work. Yeah.
Well, and it's also interesting to me because Joe Biden still is very careful to tiptoe around China when it comes to that topic. To me, it's so blatantly in your face that he refuses to call them out on anything. But I'm sure it has nothing to do with any of this, right?
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, we begin the film with this montage, and it's Republicans, it's Democrats, it's people from the Obama administration, people from the Trump administration, all talking about China is the biggest threat to the United States. Mm-hmm. Militarily, in terms of the economy, trade, the whole COVID-19, it's number one. At the end of the montage, you'll hear Joe Biden saying, come on, man, they're not a threat. They're not anything to worry about. And he's been saying that for years. He says we welcome the rise to China. And so it's weird. I mean, he is on an island by himself, far off in the ocean, saying China's not a threat. Barack Obama's not on that island.
Right.
Barack Obama's national security advisor is not on that island. Joe Biden is alone. And the question is why? Is he just completely out of touch with everybody else? I don't think so. I think it's the classic case of follow the money. And that's why when Biden has been asked about this, he was asked by a local reporter in Miami, he was asked at a press conference by ABC News, he does not deal well with this question, which to me is always evidence of maybe this is hitting too close to home.
Yeah. The people who get the most defensive are the ones who have the most to hide generally. Peter, thank you so much for all of your work.
Very welcome. It's great to be here, and I appreciate partnering with Blaze. It's been a great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. You guys are not going to want to miss this documentary. Again, you can find it at blazetv.com. You can go to blazetv.com/dragon. Also, if you want to get $20 off of your annual subscription, you can use the promo code DRAGON20. But again, the film is called Riding the Dragon. It is a documentary into the Biden's Chinese secrets. Peter Schweizer, thank you so much again.
Thanks.
Back in a minute.
Great.
Yeah, that's good stuff. People need to watch it.
Yeah. All right. Friday's poll, who had the best speech at night 4 of the RNC? This was the final night of all of these polls. Who had the best speech? President Trump won, which,
as I pointed out,
you did,
definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
Though it is absolutely unjust in the circumstance. And Dorn absolutely was the moment of the entire convention.
It was the most riveting speech. She came in at 30%, followed by Dana White at 8.3%, who only has one volume, I found out, and Alice Johnson at 6.9%. Today's poll, is the mainstream media complicit in the widespread violence and unrest across the nation? Your options are not at all, slightly, very, or I'm not sure. We've got Eric July back because that's what we do, this Hollywood magic. Eric July's back over here. What do you think,
I'm going
Eric?
very. They absolutely are. No, I would say it's most of their fault.
Yeah.
If we're going to be fair.
Yeah, but I was told that they were fiery but mostly peaceful.
Right, yeah, that's why I'm strongly in the camp of I'm not sure. I just like answering poll questions that way. Like, well, who's taking the time to just click?
I'm not sure
and submit it. Why would you just not answer it?
They're just that's some FOMO right there.
Yeah, I like it.
It's just like, I have to participate. I don't know. I just need to pick something. All right. Let us know what you think. You can go to the Blaze's Twitter. That is @TheBlaze. Thanks, guys, for being here.
I'm not sure if you're welcome.